It is 7:04. The board previously met in closed session under exception C9. There was some confusion as to the start time of the meeting. We did have some items that we wanted to address, so we had a special meeting for just these two items, and we did go into closed session. But with that, if I can have, yes, I already took a roll call, but we'll take one up here. We can do a roll call, Jazz.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian? Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Present.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Lensing?
Yes.
President Ewing?
Yes, Ms. Fabian was able to participate in deliberation, but due to family care obligations, she will be unable to attend tonight. We do have a quorum still. All board members present are here with the exception of Ms. Fabian. Again, we went into closed session under exception C9. And with that, I'd like a motion to resume open session.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Hannah, seconded by Ms. Lindsay. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. We're now in open session. Mr. Alexakis, as I mentioned, we did have public comment scheduled earlier, but because of confusion, if you can bring the list if anyone did sign up. There's no list. Are there any community members who wish to address this board at this time? No. All right, with that, I'd like we are at item 6A, expulsion proceedings for student number ending in 085.
I just jump in, right?
085.
Yep.
If you want to go ahead and read the recommended action.
Okay.
No, not you, Miss, the resolution.
Oh, okay, so I don't read the recommendation.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So whereas following a building level investigation, student 085 was determined to have possessed a weapon while at school, which under the school code requires a mandatory referral for expulsion for a period of at least 1 year unless modified by the superintendent, whose decision may be modified by the board. 105 ILCS 5/10-22.6 D2. Whereas the Board of Education of Waukegan Community Unit School District Number 60 did receive and consider the principal's recommendation and the superintendent's agreement to modify the mandatory expulsion period for student 085, and the reasons therefore. And whereas the modification proposed is in the best interest of the district and the student, and based on the totality of the circumstances, supports the maintenance of a safe school environment, free of disruptive influences, which can be a distraction to learning while continuing to hold the student accountable for the student's conduct. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved that the whereas clauses are adopted herein by reference as findings of the board. The board concurs with the superintendent's modification of the mandatory minimum expulsion period to 3 days of expulsion.
That should be suspension. Apologize.
Okay. So I will restate that. The board, so number 2, the board concurs the superintendent's modification of the mandatory minimum suspension period to 3 days of suspension, the days of out-of-school suspension already served, and an individualized safety plan. 3, the superintendent or the superintendent's designee is to notify the parents of student 085 in writing of the board's determination within the next 5 school business days. 4, this resolution is effective upon approval by the board.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Riddle,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Lindsay. Any comments or questions on the motion?
Yeah, I'm going to say that I think that there needs to be a better effort in identifying students that are being bullied at school, and because the incidents that are happening in terms of weapons, you often hear the narratives when there's statements made by students that they're bringing them for protection. Well, they're bringing them for protection for something. I don't know what, but all I know is that there needs to be a bigger effort in making sure that our students are not being bullied in the class, in the schools, and it is being overlooked, possibly not taken seriously from students, but it's actually happening, and therefore students see that nothing takes place and their incidents keep happening, and so they start taking it upon themselves to protect themselves. And I'll leave it at that.
Roll call.
Mr. McBride,
Oh,
It's not an interactive portion of today.
well, I thought that.
Roll call. It's a regular meeting.
Mr. McBride.
Pass.
Ms. Fabian, Ms. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Ms. Hannah,
Pass.
Ms. Lensing,
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes. Item approved, motion carries. We're at item 6B, expulsion proceedings, student number ending in 700.
Do I read this?
I have it.
Go ahead, Ms. Gonzalez.
Whereas the Board of Education of Waukegan Community Unit School District 60, sorry, did through its hearing officer on September 12, 2024, hold a hearing concerning possible expulsion of student number ending in 700 and receive and review the resulting hearing report. And whereas the evidence taken at said hearing shows that the student had been found to have committed the act of weapons/non-firearm possession level 2, which is in violation of the rules and regulations of the school district and the School Code of Illinois 105 ILCS 5/10-22.6 D2, and requires a minimum period of expulsion of 1 year unless modified by the superintendent, whose decision may be further modified by the Board of Education. And whereas the superintendent has concurred with the recommendation to modify the expulsion period from 1 year to the remainder of the 2024-2025 school year, and whereas other available and appropriate behavioral interventions and/or discipline were offered and/or provided to the student number ending in 700, now therefore it is hereby resolved that 1, the whereas clauses are adopted herein by reference as findings of the board, and 2, the board additionally finds that it is in the best interest of the district to remove student number ending in 700 from the educational environment at this time because the student's continued presence in school would substantially disrupt, impede, or interfere with the operation of the school. The severity of the infraction demonstrates that the student's continued presence threatens school staff and students. 3, student number ending in 700 is expelled, held in abeyance, effective September 17, 2024, from attendance at said Community Unit School District Number 60, Waukegan Public Schools, for the remainder of the 2024-2025 school year, with opportunity to reinstate at the end of the school year 2024-2025, based on successful completion of an alternative placement with the Regional Office of Education, the during being warranted on the basis of the severity of the act of weapon/non-firearm possession level 2 and its impact on the student body. 4, student number ending in 700 be referred to an outside counseling center for possible services to address factors that may be affecting their behavior in the schools. 5, student number ending in 700 additionally is prohibited from being on school grounds or district property or participating in or attending school activities for the duration of the period of the expulsion, absent specific written permission of the building principal where the event or activity is to take place for good cause as determined by the principal in consultation with the director of student outreach or the director's designee. 5, the expulsion will be stayed to permit the assignment of student number ending in 700 to an alternative placement with attendance, academic, and behavioral conditions as recommended by the administration, provided that student number ending in 700 is accepted by the alternative placement.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Riddle, seconded by Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments or questions on the motion?
I have a couple of comments.
Go ahead, Ms. Lindsay.
I don't take expulsion lightly, nor do I believe any of the board members do as well, nor do I believe the administration does. It's very serious, and we want to make sure all of our students are safe. While we can't go into the details of these situations, I do want to reiterate to our community and to our district staff that we need to make sure that we are pouring as much love into these kids and building safe relationships with them so that if there are concerns, we can possibly head off situations that don't rise to the level of expulsion. We have no idea what ACEs or traumas our kids are walking around with. And like Ms. Fabian has said, it takes 3 positive interactions to combat a negative one. So it's everyone's responsibility to pour love into these kids and to pour love into this community. Given the circumstances, I will be supporting this. It does hurt my heart that a student has to learn in this way, but we do have to balance everyone's safety.
I got a comment.
Go ahead, Ms. Adams.
The incident is unfortunate, and I will never, ever, ever condone any type of weapons or the like in our schools. But however, this particular incident or this particular process to me was flawed, and that is why I will not be supporting it.
Roll call.
Mr. McBride,
Pass.
Ms. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Ms. Hannah,
No.
Ms. Lensing,
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, item approved, motion carries. With that, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
by Mr. Riddle, seconded by Ms. Gonzalez. All in favor signify with aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Who's up first today? Student achievement? Yeah, if we can get the student achievement agenda up. All right, I'd like to call to order the August 20th, 2024 Waukegan Public School, September 17th, 2024 Waukegan Public Schools Board of Education Student Achievement meeting. If I can have a roll call, please.
Mr. McBride,
Yes.
Mr. Riddle,
Present.
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Ms. Fabian, Ms. Lensing,
Present.
President Ewing.
Here, we do have all board members present with the exception of Ms. Fabian, who again, unfortunately cannot be here due to a family care obligation. So with that, I'd like, we have some information items. If we can scroll down, our minutes. Thank you, Mr. White. Item 3A, approval of the August 20th, 2024 Waukegan Public School Board of Education minutes. If I could have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Riddle, seconded by Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments, questions, corrections to the minutes? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Information items. So just as we go to each of these information items, if any board members have a question on them, you can raise your hand. If any community members have a question on them, you can raise your hand as well, and just wait to be called on. Someone can get the microphone ready so we can make sure if anybody does have questions, we can get to them expeditiously. Item 5A, renewal of AVIC network monitoring services. The information is listed in the attachment. Item B, renewal of non-E-rate Cogent internet service provider. If you want to click on the items as we go to them, Mr. White, thank you. Item 5C, Miguel Juarez Middle School new fiber connection. Again, the information and the total price is listed. Item 5D, the renewal of Palo Alto firewall maintenance for the 24-25 school year. The total cost is listed. Item E, renewal of Smart Sheets project management tool. The Information Technology Services, ITS department seeks to renew the information, renewal, and the total cost is listed there. Item F, 104th Annual Conference for the National Council on Social Studies. Mr. Edwards, if we can get the microphone.
Good evening, everybody. I'm really trying to understand that as I'm looking at this agenda and we getting ready to approve all of these conferences, y'all. One of the things that I learned during the process of COVID is they showed us how powerful online was, how we can do a lot of things through Zoom. And so I'm asking, because you guys going to talk about a budget tonight too. And we're getting ready to talk about raising taxes. But here it is, just on this agenda alone, there is 13 conferences. 13. So I want y'all to talk about why we cannot do these conferences on Zoom. Because the same thing that they learning when they go there, outside of the hotel and the restaurants, because a lot of y'all be having cocktails outside of the hours. It's a mess. So I really want y'all to explain to this community, what are all these conferences for, number one. Number two, why can't y'all do most of this training before the school year starts back? Because y'all always talking to us about how y'all short all this staff. But we ain't even 3 months into the school and we getting ready to spend a couple of hundreds of $1,000s on conferences. The show is yours, boss.
Yes. Good evening, Board President, Superintendent, board members, community, and guests, colleagues. So thank you for the question. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is make sure that we are having these come in front of the board and in front of the community earlier than we usually have. The other piece is, to your point, there is a lot of training that can happen online. There are virtual conferences that many of my colleagues and myself and my team members do attend. There are some that are not available virtually and that provide opportunities outside of just what you can take away from a virtual meeting. All of these align to the goals that we have, and the other piece is that it is a variety of folks, including teachers and other folks who work at the school level, that also engage in this professional development. In terms of the summer piece, not all of it is available over the summer. So, and that's why you'll see varying dates as to when some of this is available. But it provides a multiple of opportunities. And so we're trying to provide those opportunities to our staff members, to our teachers, to our team members throughout the year.
Thank you.
So just real quick, so is there a way for you to explain to this community which of these conferences can be done online versus in person? Because I mean, like, let's be honest, man. We're talking about taxpayer dollars here. We're talking about all of the people that invest so much in this community, and we already disturbed by all of the money that we're spending outsourcing and everything. I really want to know if we did a FOIA, because we're getting ready to talk about a conference in Chicago, almost $40,000. Y'all can drive to Chicago. That is ridiculous. It's time for y'all to explain this to us. Like, seriously, which ones can be done online versus which one can't?
So some of these conferences they're over the course of 3 days, and they have people that come in from all over the country to present on different items, and they allow for opportunities for us to network, to also work with different folks. I had mentioned the one conference that I go to, AASA, which was approved earlier in the year. That is a conference that they have attended AI conferences, so we could hear from different folks, experts across the country, and also practitioners. So how they've taken this research, how they've taken the latest and implemented it, and how it's worked. And so it's an opportunity to hear from these folks and work with them, but it's all in one place. In addition to that, I mean, it's a variety of different topics. It's not always one specific one. So if you're doing a virtual training, sometimes it's very specific. And a lot of times, some of these conferences, there are a variety of topics around a certain theme, but it provides multiple opportunities to see the latest from different vendors, to see the latest in research, and it does provide a lot of opportunities to network. We've also been recruiting. We were able to bring in, and I don't want to misspeak, but Dr. Bublitz, I think we were able to bring in additional social workers and other staff members too through recruitment opportunities at some of these events. So ones that we can do virtually, we will do virtually. But again, the focus has been making sure that these align to the streams of work that we have going on, and that we're spreading that opportunity. So we're not taking people, entire departments out of the district. It would not be responsible. So I think that's a valid concern that has been raised, but it does provide opportunities that cannot be achieved or taken advantage of in one sitting in one virtual meeting.
Mr. Sabecki.
All right, so I have a few questions. I'm going to group them all together too, all these conferences. Like we said, we're talking about budgets, raising taxes, and everything else. How much professional development do the professionals need? Day in and day out. There's people on this agenda, 13 conferences, that are going on 2, 3, 4 conferences. It's the same people every year. And the departments keep going on these, constantly going on all these conferences. They go on the conference, we hear nothing else about it. After that conference, we don't hear nothing as a community. So what training are they getting? What are they bringing back to our district? We don't present on it. And as Mr. Rayon said, the one in Chicago, we just bought 2 or 3 brand new buses. That's a 45-minute drive. We come to school at 6 o'clock in the morning. If your guys, all their conferences start at 9, guess what? Jump on that bus. Y'all can go down to Chicago, park that bus, and go to your conferences and then come back. It's a 45-minute drive. $33,000 is a lot of money to go to Chicago and stay up in hotels and everything else. We got to talk about being fiscally responsible. Because I don't know if any of y'all noticed, but we talk about raising taxes. There's a lot of people on fixed income in this district. There's a lot of people that are single parents in this district. There's a lot of elderlies on fixed income in this district. And if we can't work within our budgets and the amount of money that we get, then we need to start watching our spending, as Ms. Hannah keeps saying, and knock off a lot of these conferences. These people are supposed to be the professionals. In the last 9 years under this administration, look at the student report cards. They haven't changed. So what are all these conferences doing? We can keep saying best practices and all this and that. Like I said, as a community, we never hear nothing after this conference. And there's multiple people going on multiple conferences. And it's getting ridiculous. Under this administration, before this administration, there was never this many conferences. And if we're going to do it, I'm all for teachers going on conferences and that they're the ones with the students. All these administrative conferences need to stop until we can see an improvement in the grades. And we keep hearing from you guys is it takes time, it takes time. When this administration started, those kids were in kindergarten, first grade. They are now in high school. And we still have not seen any change at all. So how much time are we supposed to start seeing this change? Y'all keep saying it takes time, it takes time, it takes time. 9 years, and we're still in the same predicament.
Mr. Vukovic.
Same topic, conference and travel. I agree, teachers, they should be the ones going on these things, but you also need to make sure that when they're going on these trips, that there is a qualified substitute in the classroom, because that poor teacher goes on this trip, comes back, and their class they might be teaching 4th grade, and some were in the 2nd grade, some were in the 5th grade class, because there wasn't enough subs to, I don't know that you've ever addressed the sub pay, something you all talked about, but a year's gone by now. But conference and travel, it's the frequent flyers, the same people, time and time again. I do have to commend, there was somebody going to North Carolina, and God bless them, they're leaving at like a 5:30 flight and returning a 5:30 a.m. flight. their round trip ticket was going to be $155. You know, if everybody flew like that, it'd be a different story. But there's some here that are pretty pricey. You know, it's pretty sad when I have to say that maybe we need to follow the lead of Dalton, Illinois. Their trustees have put a halt to travel by officials, and it's about time that this board take a lead like that and stop it, because as they said, you talked last week about going to have to raise taxes. Nobody's going to remember you didn't raise them for all those years, but the year you raise it, and then you've got the $30,000 bond. That's going to probably start hitting the tax rolls at least partially next year. So people are going to feel it. People are going to feel it, and they're going to question. People in this town haven't taken a trip for their job or vacation, and they see some of the same people 3, 4, 5 times in one school year taking a trip.
Ms. Lindsay.
So I want to preface this. So I have 2 comments. The first one I want to preface with, we have seen the diverse learner department hire speech SLPs or speech language pathologists and other positions within their department, which is great. Dr. Cesario, you said that the DL department has hired from these conferences. And so we've heard Dr. Bublitz say that that is a task he has given his team to make sure they are networking. But I think we would want to tell the community when there is a hire from one of these conference connections so that they are building the understanding that it is productive. So this is the first time I'm hearing that we've actually hired from these connections. So have we hired from these connections, or is it's a task?
It is, first of all, it is, it's a good question. First off, that is part of what they're doing when they're there too. They're also recruiting, so they do bring the swag and other things so they can set up and do that for part of the time. We, Dave and Greg, Dr. Bublitz, we have hired through
We've had several interviews for SpeechPath due to either state or national, and the national is virtual. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Bublitz.
Are they interviews or hires?
Is this on? Okay. Guess I could stay here. We have hired SpeechPaths based on national and local association recruiting efforts. Actually the national one was virtual. It was pretty cool. They set up a, I don't know how it works, meeting and such like that. We will be trying to recruit nationally at the NASP for psychologists, which is one of those up there. We'll continue to work on the recruiting locally and perhaps virtually again with speech. Social worker Ms. Price and I will be looking at how we do that. But it has been a priority of my department and it's been pretty successful. You don't always get everything, but I think having consistency in networking, having the table there, showing that Waukegan shows up, I think that's important year to year when you have these master's students and graduates coming to these association conferences. So we're doing our best to work it, and we're starting to see some results.
I appreciate
I don't
that.
have an exact number for you.
Yeah, and that's
now.
understandable. My only point is that just like when Mr. Figueroa comes up and talks about the different avenues that he uses with his HR approaches, we want to champion and highlight we were successful doing this approach so that the community is aware, and then it's less feedback on the administration of what's not happening.
I have some raw data. I'll have my coordinators put it together and we'll send it to the board. And Mr. Figueroa and my department are working together. He's supporting the SpeechPath department this year at ISHA to help get that out. So we are working together.
Okay, great, thank you. And then I'm good on that front. The other component that I had was some of these conferences are in Florida, and I understand our district does not choose where these conferences happen, but I find it highly inappropriate for a district with our ethnic makeup to support and fund travel to a state that is removing historical teaching and real history for our Black community and our Hispanic community. So that's something that I personally cannot support.
I understand that, Ms. Lensing, and I could see your point of view. I think when you look at these conferences and how they're set, they usually go to certain states. Vegas, Florida, New Orleans is another big one. What's
California.
another?
California has a lot.
I'm not saying
Texas.
that to change your mindset. I'm just saying, like, they tend to, I don't know if they get special pricing or deductions on where they host them, but there tends to be states that are grounded in the conference world, and they just turn them over for all type of organizations. So I do understand that. Florida is definitely one. I know Las Vegas is definitely one. California, San Diego is like a big area of it. But I do understand what you're saying. But just so you know, the concept of that is they tend to get bids in certain states, and then they go there for medical professionals. Just they're a big conference turnover.
I appreciate that. I'm fully aware of that concept. I'm fully aware of the approach. They want to do these fabulous cities so that people want to go there and also enjoy the city and go to their restaurants and patron all of the businesses. I understand that. However, my moral code cannot support a state that is doing this to their citizens.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Hannah.
And I am looking at, and I'm going to kind of jump ahead of you, Mr. President.
If we can stick to this one, because I had a comment on it, Ms. Hannah.
Oh, okay, well, I'll wait till we get there.
Thank you. So I do hear it. I'm with Miss. I understand the concerns when we talk about taxes. As the same article said, we did cut spending by $15 million. So that is not nothing. That's a significant cost reduction, and it leads to some different things. The board, as well as the administration, heard the request from the community that they did want to see teachers. So I think, yes, it sounds good when you say you're spending all this money on conferences, but when you look at this specific item, F, there are 4 teachers and 2 administrators who are directly responsible for the education of that department. And as we say, we want high quality individuals. We want to make sure that they're receiving the appropriate training. I do think that there is a real need for a conversation of travel. We've talked about restricting it. Is it one out of state, one in state? Is it no? Like, we can have that conversation, but we did approve a budget. And for this specific item F, I would definitely support it because it is going directly to individuals that are responsible for teaching and interacting with our students or responsible directly for that specific curriculum. So if there are no other questions on that specific item, I do want to move on to item G, renewal of Follett Destiny Library and textbook inventory system.
I do want to apologize, Board President, for jumping to the
No
other
worries.
ones that were not to that item.
It was in response to the conversation, so I just wanted to bring it back. If any board members do have a question on that item, then they can bring it forward. Item G, renewal. Any questions? Item H, Ann and Robert H. Laurie Hospital of Chicago and the Center for Childhood Resilience for certified school counselors, psychologists, and social workers. The information is there. Any comments, questions on this item?
Which one?
Item H, Ann and Robert H. Laurie Children's Hospital of Chicago and the Center for Childhood Resilience. So, the comments that came up again when I look at the individuals that are going to this conference, SAR, social workers, counselors, psychs, right? So
Are they the contracted social workers and stuff?
Hi. This is actually a training for our in-house social workers, counselors, and school psychologists. So this is training so that we can actually facilitate and run small groups here in district with our students.
So 100% going to learn so that you can come back and apply.
The training's happening here.
See.
Oh, it's happening here.
Yeah, they're bringing
Good
them in.
for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Item I, assured health contract increase.
Are these? I got a question about this. Are these
Can you click on the item, Mr. White?
Yeah, because I thought I had looked at this. Is this the contract that, that there's been a lot of talk about in reference to some, the outsourcing, and the outsourced people are getting benefits from both the school district and the contract holder, or the Assured Health. Is this that contract?
I don't believe so. So these are in instances where we don't have nurses to cover medically fragile students, to have just a safety net. I've kind of spoken about this before. If we were to get students that came into the district that required, based on their IEP, if we were to require additional, we have this in place so that we don't have to wait for the next board meeting to get it approved. We have it right there, so that we have the authorization to expend those funds to contract those folks, so that we're not in compliance with the IEP.
And so the 300,000 that's being estimated, right? Is that what it's going to? No, let me rephrase. Is that money being put on hold?
Yes.
Until we need those specialties.
Yes, we're not expending those dollars until we need to, and so it is it does come out of the Diverse Learners, the IDA grant. So, but to your point, they are being held, if you will. The board would authorize to have those monies on hand, so that if we did have a student that came that needed it, we wouldn't have to wait for a board meeting to ask for an approval of that. We can automatically have a contract, but only expend the funds if we're using that personnel.
Ms. Lindsay?
So can we touch back on the IDEA grant? Because I believe we've approved maybe 3 of these contracts previously. Are they all going to be covered under the IDEA grant?
So, yes, that's the budgeted plan, and so I have this budgeted in the narrative for the state grant, or will with carryover money. So one of the things about that, if we don't expend that, it's a federal grant, so we do get carryover.
Okay.
So like,
You got my
we spent
follow-up.
$150,000, we put $300,000 in the grant. For whatever reason, we didn't need a nurse, or the student left, or whatever. That $150,000 could be amended to spend on something else, supplies, other staff, PD, whatever. Or it will come back next year, as long as there's rules and ratios and all that. You have to expend so much, and you can't have that much carryover. So that money won't get spent, will be spent on something else, and then we'll carry over if we don't spend it. And then just want to say they're a really good partner. We've had one nurse come over from them to the district, and then we have 2 that have expressed interest. And so within that contract, there's amount of hours or days, and we don't pay a buyout. And so it's it's not recruiting, but it's good because they enjoy working here. And we've had some come back and ask, we want to be assigned there. So they've been a really good partner. We try to hire, as you know, but now, so why now? Why are we've had this approved, and we're expanding the budget because now that we have enrollment, we know who our kids are, and we know also where additional nurse office needs are. So.
Great. And I just wanted to thank you, Dr. Bublitz, because you anticipated my follow-up question if we didn't use these funds. So I'm
Yes.
glad that they'll be pushed forward. Thank you.
Mr. McBride and then Mr. Becky as well.
I just had one question. Before we decided to outsource, what were you doing before then? Because we always had kids in needs like you're speaking about.
So it's a good question. In the 3 districts I've worked in, and I know lots of people, colleagues, professionals, it's very typical to contract out for the kids that are medically fragile. So there's a few reasons for this. We don't know always when they come. When they do, the nature of their disability, often they may need to leave school for a while for hospitalization or medication or injury. And so with a contract employee, we don't pay them when they don't work. But if we hire somebody for a district for that kind of assignment, that person might be here and have a day, a week, months without an assignment. We'd either have to let them go or find something new or work as a nurse, as a I don't know. We'd have to find something for them to do. So typically, districts will use contract nurses for that. In addition, there aren't a lot of certified school nurses in the state. It's rare. We are blessed to have, I'll get the number wrong, so I'm not going to say it. We do have plenty to do business. They can do IEP services and write IEPs. Other nurses, RNs, also hard to find, but more expensive than, say, LPNs or, I'm forgetting Dave, the other one. They're more expensive, so we wouldn't necessarily need an RN to work as a one-to-one or in a nursing office necessarily. So sometimes, because we can't find them, it is also less expensive to have, say, a CSN do that work, or LPN, not a CSN. There's a lot of abbreviations, sorry. So an LPN.
BSN or something.
So that's one of the reasons that we do that.
So why is there an increase?
I think
Because now that there's enrollment, we know that we have a greater need for our medically fragile students as well as our nursing offices.
Thank you. Mr. Tabeki.
All right, I just got a blanket statement for this. We as a district, at some point, got to figure out how to get out of the contracts. Because these contracts are going to continue to increase, and they're going to be hard to staff positions. They always will be. And they always will be if they can set their own price. They're going to keep increasing them and keep increasing them. You're not going to be able to keep in-house ones when you can go to these contracted services and make a lot more money. So these prices, I'm telling you, these are going to keep going up year after year after year because they get to set their own prices, basically. Because we needed them. They have to, and we're not going to be able to keep in-house because no one in-house is going to want to stay here and make 3 times less than what some of these contracted people are making. They're going to leave the district and go to the contracted places because then they get to sit their own pay scale. So at some point, we need to look at this because they're going to keep going up every year. Mark my words, every year these contracts will keep going up.
Fair point. We just have to be honest in that this is unfortunately a part of the educational experience today when you have there's a nursing shortage, teacher shortage, all of these things shortage, and until we're able to fill the workforce to be able to supply the demand, you're correct because you have a unique skill. And if you can set your price, and I'm pointing to Mr. Tabeki for those that are listening, you're going to set your price. So what we have to do is create that there are more Mr. Sabekis or there are more RNs, there are more LPNs, there are more options so that we can, because it is expensive and you can only do it for so long. And these people, again, there's a shelf life. So it's bad now. There's another cliff coming due to retirements. We're not able to replace individuals as quickly as they will be retiring. So that's why your point is valid. I just want to be honest to the community is this is not something that we're going to be able to move away from in the next 5 years, in the next decade. So we could not like it.
So all of this so we're seeing this in other school districts as well.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah. If you look at listings for hospitals, a lot of them are looking for BSNs, RNs,
I say the
and
school district, not hospital.
It's the same. They're
it's the
going
same
for the same talent pool.
laborers that we're looking for. I did want to add that yes, I 100% agree. The more you specialize, right, and the harder it is to pay for school for the specialized professions, we're just never going to be at a point where we have enough people filling the positions that we need. But it also sounds like something that the district offers is attracting those people based on the contract. And I really like what you said, Mr. Bublitz, or Dr. Bublitz, that the benefit of a contract, although it's not ideal, is that if they don't work, we don't pay them. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that we don't want to in-house department or strong teams in house, but that's to say that with these one-to-one, very rigorous situations that our students need and we should offer and service as much as we can, we can hold that boundary, right? And we're earmarking this money, but that doesn't mean that we'll use it every year. So I think that's the benefit of it, that balances out.
Thank you.
But-
And I'm going Mr. Riddle, then Ms. Lindsay, only because I saw his hand first. He waited. Go ahead, Mr. Riddle.
Dr. Bublitz, I just wanted to clarify too. I heard you say that these are grant funds, and then I noticed in the rationale here, it also says we need three, besides the one-on-one for the medically fragile students, we also need 3 new nurse hires, and we're in the process of possibly hiring those people. Is there grant money for them, or when we hire a nurse, I mean, you need that nurse on staff in our schools, there's no grant money for that? That's just a salary that we have to pay and absorb, right, in the benefits? and all?
So we budget for each FTE, and typically that's local for various reasons. This money, the contract money, as long as I've had enough to spend on the contractors, has come out of the grant. So we're not, right, so if we're not filling that one, it's budgeted for a speech path, but I'm paying for a contracted speech path out of the grant. So yes, I could use that money to buy curriculum or PD or a medical device. However, and I'm not going to speak for Dr. Pope, it is budgeted, they don't use it, it doesn't carry over like the grant money,
Right.
but that's not my area. Well, we don't spend
But
it,
we do try to hire nurses for our buildings. So it talks about the 3 district hires that in the near future for building nurses, right? Not the specialized, but just the nurses in the building.
Correct. We haven't been able to do that in these 3 cases.
We have not.
And we need to have coverage.
And that's not grant money that we get for that. That's district money that we.
It's district money for the FTE.
Yes.
However, we're paying for the contractors to cover that FTE with grant money.
Can we also be clear that when you say FTE,
Full-time
the
employee.
the full-time employee we pay from the school budgets, right?
Yes.
But the person that maybe is contracted to fill the full-time employee that we haven't been able to hire just yet, that's paid through the grant funds.
grant.
Yeah.
That's what I want to clarify.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Board President, board members, superintendent, community members, there's a reason why we don't want to put certified personnel into the grant, because we'll have to pay that additional TRS federal.
Yeah.
So it's best if we only put non-certified individuals into the grant, and we can maximize the money by using that money that we otherwise would have to pay for the TRS federal on more stuff. So we've worked very closely with ASAP, Dr. B, to maximize those monies and not put those personnel in there.
Got it. Thank you.
Ms. Pope, we'll stay there. Okay, yeah, I got a question for Dr. Bublitz. We are getting some percentages of reimbursement out of special education, aren't we?
Yes, we do.
Do you know exactly
I-
what
I don't know.
percentage are we getting? Because I know there used to be.
So there's a few things. We get reimbursement for every student with an IEP with various levels of services. As that increase of costs or excess costs increase, we get reimbursement. For related services, we get Medicaid reimbursement. So we just had a check for 1.4 million, and we're looking at more ways to grab that money, right? They don't just give it to you. We got to grab that. Busing, transportation, therapeutic day students, we get reimbursement for that.
And also, are you still getting reimbursed for particular staff that are in, I'm gonna say what I know, special education, but diverse learners? There used to be staff members
services, but I don't know
that
about specific staff.
Yes, we used to have the special ed personnel claim.
Right.
I don't believe we have that claim
We don't
anymore
do that
because they
anymore?
incorporate that money inside of the evidence-based funding.
Okay,
So they fund special ed positions through that.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that has changed.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanna take that out of my head.
Yeah, but we get the money, but it's just another source.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay.
Thank you. So it was going to be one, now it's two. Sorry, guys. So I want to be careful as we navigate this conversation when we talk about full-time employees versus contracted service, and the contractor's salary is fully covered technically under this grant, whereas otherwise we'd be having to pay out of our personnel funds. I want to be careful because Dr. Bublitz, you highlighted, if we're not paying for people, we could be paying for other resources that our students need. So that grant could be reallocated, to your point, you said medical devices and other things, to put those funds to use.
That is correct. And so I work very closely with Gwen and my team to budget so that we can manage that. It can be a balancing game, but
Yeah.
we really want to reduce the contract so we can spend that money on other things.
Yeah, and I'm very pro reducing the contract as well. I know last year I got really excited because our former CTE director had worked with another staff member for having a program for future teachers, so our students that are wanting to be future teachers. What sort of resources or opportunities do our students have to possibly go into the nursing profession that's funded by the school?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I had spoken about last year was that we did receive another grant. And so the idea of the future educators is that they go into this program and then we'd have them come back as paras once they were paraprofessionals, as once they were hired, and then as part of the grant, and we have several actually, one of which you'll hear about tonight, but the idea is that then they could work while also going to school and having that paid for. So, and you know, if it took them 2 years, if it took them 3 years, they're still getting experience, they're making money, they're building time in the retirement system, and then they have an opportunity to go into teaching, whether it be special education or some other area that's of interest to them. But yes, that's part of what we're doing to continue to grow the program.
Right. My question was, with all the great things that we're doing to help address the teacher shortage, what opportunities do our students have to address the nursing shortage that we're seeing upcoming?
Oh, that's a good idea. We can look for other pieces. I'm not, you know, we can look into that.
It's
currently.
not one of the pathways. I think that's the question. Is
It isn't at present. It is not at present, no.
Okay.
So we built out a couple pathways over the last 2 years, one of them being the HVAC and the other one future educators. And so, but yeah, nursing is always a very popular one. There's always possibilities.
And my only point to that is going back to what Mr. Sabecki said, is this problem didn't start 5 years ago. It didn't start when Teresa got here. It started 50 years ago. And if we're going to stop the problem, we need to create those pathways so that individuals are able to, is because that's the only way that we're going to be able to build that workforce that we need for the future. So I know we have a plan that's coming on
Yes.
what pathways will look like, and I get that this may not be in the roadmap, but if we don't start today, 10 years from now, we're going to be having the same conversation.
Right.
So I do appreciate that commentary. Ms. Hannah, final word on this point, then we got to move on.
Just for FYI, Dr. Serio, all of those future nurses, future educators, teachers, it's been done here, and I'm sure there's somebody around that would be able to help you navigate into what we were very successful in doing with our students and bringing them back into our school district. So
Send them my way, please.
yeah,
Yes, of
it's-
course.
Yeah.
Actually, send them Amanda Knowles' way and Jennifer Rice
Good
de la
clarification.
Sanchez's way. But no, send them our way. Yes.
Yeah.
And-
So dual enrollment.
Yes.
yeah.
And can I just add one point, because Ms. Rice de la Sanchez pointed it out, that there are other institutions that are doing this work that we can lean on and create a pathway through for our students. The school district, I know it's hard to believe, but it does a lot. And there are other institutions with endowments that need our students, that also need a place at the table in terms of this conversation. So that is a perfect thing. Like Tech Campus should be full of Waukegan students.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Like Zion.
And we've increased the number over the last
Yes,
4 years.
we have. We have.
So we're looking for all those opportunities, as well as to build them here. So, but yes.
It's a both. Mhm.
Yeah, both, right.
But to return to the item, this is $300,000 to increase coming from IDA funds for us to make sure that our students have nurses at the buildings.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, we got item J, attendance at the Council of Administrators of Special Education. That's the case conference. That information is listed, those who are attending.
I have a question about this. And it's there's three conferences here on the agenda, and they are so very similar, and I'm trying to understand why that the same people have to go to all of the conferences in reference to law and legal issues in education. I mean, what's the what are you going to get from one legal issue with special education with individuals with disability versus the Special Education Academy of Law and Leadership. And then there's one also further down, and it's kind of the same thing. And so I'm just wondering, why are there three conferences here, and they basically cover the same thing? And that's my question. But then my comment is, how much more training does our professionals that came to us with the skill sets that we were asking for, how much more training and education do they need to perform their jobs? And that's what is bothering me so much. I mean,
Can we have him take the first part of that question, Ms. Hannah? What's the difference between the conferences?
yeah, what's the difference?
Okay, so LRP is put on by National Publishing Company of National Special Education Lawyers. For other lawyers and special educators, parents and families may go as well. That's one that we've typically gone to. It's fantastic, and we've opened it up to not just administrators, but our specialists who are on the teacher contract as well. They are our frontline people. The other one, CASE. CASE is the National Association. It's the Council for Administrators of Special Education. Only one of those, they'll have law at the one, but that's more focused on educational and administrative issues, where Case Law Academy is like LRP. It's a legal conference, but it's put on by educators, right? Or special ed administrators and educators. I've never been to that. However, I want to try and get different perspectives. So honestly, I gave my administrators a choice, and they're not choosing, they're choosing one or two. So many chose LRP, Many of our specialists are taking the opportunity. And then just two things. In special ed, the law never stops changing.
It's very fluid.
Yes, very fluid. And so, 2 years ago or 3 years, Andrew F., and I'll forget all the names, it doesn't matter. They changed the interpretation of what happens with what we do in the schools. Recently, I don't remember the case, but there was one that has serious financial and liability concerns for districts, because traditionally you could only sue for monetary damages through Section 504, which is civil rights. I'll keep it as simple as I can. You could not sue for monetary damages through the IDEA, which is special ed. So after this one Supreme Court case came, we special ed administrators and lawyers were, I'm not a lawyer, but the lawyers, that put a lot of fear into us. So one of the things we do is navigate, we talk, we network, we see how is that law being applied, and what do we have to do to be careful. So you'll have lawyers or other educational administrators telling us, do this, don't do this, be careful of this, support your principals and superintendents in this way. So I'm not just responsible for the education of students, I am responsible to the taxpayers, and a lot of what I do, much of what I do revolves around the law. And so that's the difference there. I am a member of, so one of the important things, I am a member of the case Legislative and Policy Committee, where we advocate to the Senate and Congress. We provide information and interpretation of the Office of Special Ed and Office of Civil Rights. So I'm taking hopefully this opportunity to represent Waukegan nationally as well as state. And I think it's important that the state is represented, and I think it's even better if Waukegan's the one leading the state. So that's a little aside, but I'm proud to be able to do that, and I think we see the concerns about education here on a greater level than some communities. But that's the difference between those three. But I am really excited that we could identify some teachers that are frontline specialists to go.
And you had a lot of, I think there were like 12 that I counted. External.
It's 11 or 12, some admins, some external specialists.
Right.
They're the ones who teach the teachers. They're the ones who work on compliance for IEPs. They're in the buildings. They're going to DLT meetings. They're LEAs they run or facilitate IEP meetings. When a principal or a teacher has a concern, they should go first to the external specialist. And then we can support them, and they support the special education.
And so my question is, you're going to have all of those specialists out at one time. Can you explain that?
Sure, that's when the conference is. And
No. I know that's when the conference is.
So
how is that going to impact the
It should not impact
process of
because they'll
going-
schedule appropriately. I will be here. My 2 assistant directors will be here when they're gone. I have other coordinators that are here when they're gone. It will be covered.
And my last question that you didn't answer, that went along with it, how much more education do the professionals need, because they came to us with it?
I can respond to that. So any professional that is a certified professional or has a practicing license has to complete a certain amount of professional development hours per year. That's number one. So I will tell you, professional development and continuous learning is just part of the profession. It never stops. Research change, philosophy changes, the law changes, different ideas come out in different areas, right? I mean, in reading, we're seeing the big movement around science of reading. That was not the movement 10 years ago. So all of that, it's just constantly changing. So Ms. Hannah, to answer your question, it never stops.
So just to add one other piece to this, I think it's important to note too, and Greg can look at the percentage, but a percentage of the IDEA grant has to be allocated for professional development. So we have to allocate. Well, I think it's important for the public to know that as well, that in addition to what Superintendent Placencia said, it's an expectation of every profession. If you're a doctor, a plumber, a lawyer, a teacher, to continue your growth and development.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Edwards.
Real quick, I appreciate that. Now that just helped a lot to tell us that somebody else is paying for a lot of that. And I do agree that things do change. And so I understand that you learn something every 2 months. So I definitely 100% agree with that. I guess then my issue is this. I can go for the conferences if it's actually doing something. Again, nobody comes and put a presentation on to this board, to this community, and I'm sorry, teachers, I ain't gonna say no name, but you have a lot of staff that reaches out to people like me and say, hey, they went on the conferences, but ain't nobody came and taught us nothing. This is why we be so upset, because y'all come here and tell us that y'all teach y'all staff and that the people that y'all have is teaching them, but I can go on my phone right now and I guarantee you, and I'll print it out for y'all, I can pull out over 150 staff that then complained about this. So I'm saying this to the board, that the conferences may be good. They very well may be necessary, but at some point, we the community is asking y'all, this board, the ones we elected, to make sure that when we are sending them on the conference, the people that needs this information, the front line, the teachers, because a lot of times administrators and the staff is saying it, and you guys have heard it, that the administrators don't even go in these buildings. A lot of the time, these teachers don't even see the administrators. The things that they need, these administrators are not providing it. So, to Ms. Hannah's point, how much more education do a lot of them need? When they came to us, they said they had these certain qualifications that you were able to do this job. Again, I'm with paying for the education, but I want to make sure that when we pay for it, they are training, they are teaching those teachers what they learned, and they come back and give us something for our buck.
I think the continuing conversation is just accountability for the funds, right? Like, come back with something. And I believe it's, if you don't apply it within 72 hours, it's not as impactful. So I don't know what the strategies are in place, but I think to Board President Ewing's point, I think this is a greater conversation that we'll need to add on and consider how we want to move forward. So that, one, we're building trust with our district staff and our community while still achieving the goals that we need to accomplish with the expertise learned at the conferences. So
yeah,
hopefully we can get something set up.
It's a fair point. I haven't been able to figure out the appropriate way, and I'll be completely honest and transparent, because that's what Mr. Edwards has asked. Our meetings are too dang long. And if individuals are coming back to tell me about conferences that they attended, and we're already having 3 and 5 hour meetings, to me, that has not been the best use of your time or the board's time. So if there's a way for us to consider what that looks like, but also coming back and writing a report, it's much more, as Mr. Bubbles told me, it's much more important for him to use that time to say, all right, this is the law that's changed. These are my PD. Because I can go to him and I can ask what his PD schedule is, and he can provide me with his PD schedule. And that's accountability of, so if somebody's telling you that they're not getting the information, there's a miscommunication in the system, and we need to figure out where that is and where it exists, because I can go and ask you right now to pull up your PD schedule, and he can provide with what is being taught. And I can speak from experience having a family member in the classroom. There have been, since school started, trainings on the half days, right? So what is the information that they feel they're not getting? And if they feel comfortable talking to you, Ray, as that filter, I would ask that if you, like you said, either print them off, and if you want to keep them transparent, just give us bullets of what it is that they're saying, because for whatever reason, they feel comfortable giving you that information that they're not comfortable communicating to the board or to Dr. B. So that would just be my thing for us to try and get to the root cause. Is because when I look at this conference specifically, and the fact that Dr. B is saying that he's going to promote the district on a national level in order to advocate, that's an important part of his role. And as the person, when I say closest to the work, but as a director that's seeing what's happening in the district, it's important for him to be able to communicate that. And my final point on this topic is I've been on the board 8 years. I've been to IESB conference every year. We have individual board members that have been here for 10 plus years. They've gone to a conference or 2 or 3 every year because the information at their conferences is important. It is valuable. And regardless of what skills Brandon Ewing brought to this role, I learn something that I'm able to apply at every conference that I attend. So that's kind of my point as it relates to the conference pieces. I do get it. Maybe we want to limit the total amount, and that's a fair conversations to have. But as far as like, you know, there may be a conference that we got to go to every year is because it's important and that's our opportunity. And for them as educators too, they can get their credit for attending these conferences in order to keep their licenses current. Mr. Edwards.
Real quick. And so I ain't no offense to nobody on that board. We shouldn't have no 5-hour board meetings. That means you board members need to shut up, listen to this community, and when those agendas come out, you need to do your work, read those agendas before you come to these meetings, write your questions down. And a lot of those questions y'all can ask in those closed sessions and have that already figured out before you come here. Stop taking this time to grandstand in front of this community because we really don't care about the grandstanding. We want results. And I just had to say that because these board members' meetings are ridiculous sometimes with some of the questions that some of y'all ask because y'all got access that we don't. So some of those questions y'all ask, y'all can keep them to yourself and find them out on your time and not on our time. So good point, Brandon.
I'm going to respond directly to that. So with OMA, any board business that is not personnel or student needs to be done in public. So when we ask questions, we're not grandstanding. We are trying to find information. We are trying to make sure the community is aware of the information. This is not grandstanding. But what these meetings should not be this long. However, we do not have trust with the community. That has been broken for some time, and that needs to be rebuilt. And that takes time and that takes effort on both sides. If we keep talking about the same things over and over without finding a way to resolve them, they're going to continue to be this long. My goal is to try to get to a point where we can move through these efficiently, not nitpick every single thing, but rebuild that trust to understand that our administration is doing what they're supposed to be doing, our teachers are supposed to be doing what they're supposed to be doing, and the board is doing what they're supposed to be doing. So yeah, I get it. We want them shorter. But to say that we are grandstanding, I personally feel that's offensive. That's not what we are doing. We are asking questions so that we can understand and also inform the community what's going on with our funds. That is our fiduciary responsibility.
Real quick, because I have to respond. I call it grandstanding because I want you to answer me. Before you got elected on that board, how did you get elected? You took time out and you went and met with these people and you asked them for your signature. So the same way you did that, you can take that time and you can explain to them some of the things and questions and things like that. You guys have access. You can do Facebook Live. You can, let me finish. You can do all of that because you did all of that.
Yeah.
We really don't care why you voted the way you voted. Because for somebody like me, and I say this directly to you, since you had to respond to it, there was a time you stood up at this podium and you complained about the traveling. And so now I'm sitting in this audience seat and you sitting up there and you voting yes to all the times about the traveling. So yes, that's why I call it grandstanding. Because I'm wondering what didn't change in this small matter of time. A vote is a vote. And a lot of times you guys want to go back and forth and challenge something when you know you don't even have the votes to stop it. So yes, that is grandstanding, and it's wasting my time. Absolutely.
Yes.
And so let's move on to the next subject. We can have this conversation afterward.
No, because this is something that the public needs to know, right? I do wish we had more interaction, more town halls where the board can speak with the community and build those relationships. We have to speak with one voice. So I can't go on Facebook Live and talk about my individual opinion because I am now a board member. And yes, I still have as many frustrations as a board member as I did as a private citizen. We all wish that our district ran perfectly. All of our students got what they need. All of our staff members got what they need, what our administration needed. We would love that. But to bring it back to a point from a prior meeting, we are 74% funded. I have not voted for every single travel. I have specifically called out against board members going to travel to different conferences that are not within our lane. Those should go to the professionals in our district. So as we have these conversations, I agree. We should have additional meetings, but it's not a one-person decision. It's a group decision on how to best use our time for constructive conversations.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. And again, go ahead, Mr. McBride, and then I do want to move on. We got another meeting.
I just got one comment. You know, there was some conversation dealing with you, Dr. Butlis, but there was a guy here named Myron Dagley, and the other gentleman's name was Howard Atlas. I vaguely remember your department, those same two guys was doing what y'all doing. So a lot that you're talking about, I do understand, and I don't want you to be deceived that I don't understand what's going on, because a lot that you were talking about, Ms. Hannah did make a comment in reference to things that should be that should already be known without having to do other things. I agree with her on that, because again, like I said, I watched them two guys run that department, and I just want you to know that I do understand your department.
So with these individual things, I think we have sufficient information for individual members to vote their conscience as it relates to travel. And again, so Ms. Hannah gave me the question of, because it's already 8:20, are there any questions on any of the items remaining on the agenda? So we got K, L, attendance at NACI, M, N, system technology, O, A, it's a different date, same conference, Q, R, S, T, U. All right. With that, it's 8:22. I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Ms. DeRiddle, second by motion by Mr. McBride, seconded by Mr. Riddle. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. We can take a bathroom break and be here at 8:30 to get started with our next meeting. And what was next?
That's
is
a different-
8:33. So it's 8:33. I'd like to call to order the Operations Meeting Services Committee meeting for September 17th, 2024. If I can have a roll call.
Ms. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mr. Riddle,
Present?
Mr. McBride, Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Ms. Lansing,
Present.
Ms. Fabian, and President Ewing.
Here, so the only board member still not present, and as a reminder, is not able to make it due to family care obligations, is Ms. Fabian. All other board members are present. We have item 3A, approval of the meeting minutes for the August 20th, 2024 meeting. If I can have a motion.
Motion?
Motion by Mr. Riddle,
Second.
second by Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments, questions on the motion? Corrections to the minutes? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Information items, and kind of the same thing. So we have what is a relatively light agenda, but I want to make sure that you guys have, if you do have questions, you have opportunity. So are there any questions on any items at this time? I just need the letter. So as we move through 5A, transportation request for proposal, my only comment is make sure that I connect you with the individual who can make sure that we reach out to local and statewide minority contractors. Item B, approval of a 3-year lease. C, school bus maintenance agreement between Waukegan Public Schools and Illinois Central Bus Company. Go ahead, Mr. Sabecki.
All right, I was just talking to LaVerne about these. Both of them, C and D, are basically the same thing.
Yeah.
I just want to make it aware, because I've been approached by one of these companies on here that have done work on our buses before, and the school district call them like for a DOT inspection on a bus, and call this and like, can you guys come pick it up at 11, but we need it back at 2. You cannot do a proper DOT inspection on a school bus in 3 hours. We know when the annual inspections are done. We know when the safety inspections are due, and these transport our students, and a DOT inspection is not something you take lightly. This is in my profession. You know, we deal with one of these companies with even our own vehicles of hazmat materials, and it could be 1 to 2 days to go through a complete bus for a DOT inspection. You don't want to find out that someone missed something or they did it improperly because that's their name on this, and you get pulled over by a state trooper for a DOT inspection. Believe me, you could be on the side of the road for 2-3 hours because they go underneath it with creepers and everything. And that's just my thing. These things transport our students. There's people mounting stuff in some of these buses that, you know, there's only certain places that you can mount things. With this aspect of safety and that, like code hooks and that can't be on the dash. CBs can't be on the dash. They have to be in certain spots on the DOT truck. And that's all I'm saying, because if something happens, if there's an accident with one of our buses, DOT will be going through that bus and anyone's name, maintenance records, and make sure it's only the people that you guys approve working on these buses. Because if there is a thing, they will track it back all the way, and that's what I tell these people is document, document, document. If you find things the school district don't want to fix it, but document it, that you found it, you made them aware of it, they don't want to fix it. Because if something happens, believe me, it's going to come back to the district, and it's going to come back to whatever company's doing it. So that's my only comment. You know when the DOT's inspection, you have to have them annually inspected every year. You know when it's up. You can't call them like, oh, it's due in 2 days. Call you at 10 o'clock and say we need it back by 2 o'clock. It's not feasible. And if they can get you back that fast, then there was not a proper DOT inspection done on that vehicle.
Thank you, Mr. Becky. Mr. Moulton, if you can take that and make sure that it is incorporated. Are there any other questions related to either of these items?
Yeah, I just want to quick. We are keeping up with our registrations and proper licensing and stickers, all that stuff.
Yes, Ms. Hannah, all the proper, and if you could just, for a point for recording the microphone to your mouth, please. But the documentation is all proper, current, and up to date. Thank you.
All right. Item E, approval of professional development procurement strategy certificate at eCornell. Excited for this and encouraged by it, so glad to see it. And investing in continuing education for our staff. Item F, approval to attend the National School Board Association for CUBE Just in transparency, I'm not attending, so this is not an additional cost. It's already approved and incurred, so we're swapping me out for this individual. G, approval to attend Professional Development Illinois Certification Board Fall Conference. It's listed. H, Crisis Intervention and Safety Department CPI Instructor Certification Training Request. Again, glad that we are continuing education and then certifying our own staff.
Sorry, quick question. Do we have figures on how many of our staff, at least percentage-wise, are CPI trained?
So we do. I don't have that specific number here with me this evening, but we
Okay.
can certainly provide that information through the superintendent as well as our trainers that we have on staff.
Thank you.
We'll bring that back.
Thank you. I, dependable fire equipment for kitchen hood cleaning, that information is there.
I just got one question.
Go ahead, Mr. Becky.
Since we talked about this probably like 6 months ago, the access panels are in the hoods now so they can clean the fans on all sides, right? At the high schools?
We did have that work completed, yes, Mr. Sabecki. Thank you.
J, Hyde Park Furniture, inclusion of secure entry and admin office renovation at Hyde Park ES project budget. Yes. AOEC classroom furniture purchase. Go ahead, Mr. Becky.
Question on this one. According to the attachments, who asked for the furniture at AEOC? Because it was the old principal, according to the agenda that was on the paper. The date on there is 5/22. That's the same day of her official resignation from the district. So I just want to make sure the paperwork, according, if y'all looking at the paperwork, it's like she requested it, but it's the same day that her resignation was, the effective date of her resignation was, which was 5/22. So just to make sure the paperwork is up to date and is actually the right people that are requesting this, because according to the attachments, it doesn't look right.
Yes, I can speak to that. Thank you, Mr. Sobecki. So it does have a prior date on it. The quote is still good. This was verified by Mr. Dan Hill and resubmitted to us recently as of last week for action. So this is current.
That's my only thing, though. But he should have his name printed on there, because not everyone knows Mr. Hill's signature or whatever. But he should have his name printed on there also, if he's the one that is asking for it and approved it. Just for clarity, when people are looking at this stuff, his
When
name
it comes
should be on
back
there.
for a vote, Mr. Moulton, just ensure that Dan Hill signs off on that, please.
Will do.
All right. L, McCall Hot Water returned piping. M, Washington Campus Water Main Emergency Repair. This will be retroactive. N, update of masonry wall removal and replacement at Lincoln Center.
What is that? Is that about that wall out there? The wall that you guys took down?
Yeah. Can we check that? I thought we had talked about revisiting that project.
Yeah, because and then here's the other thing. Well, I don't know where the 71,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is just a payment.
This
is a payment.
Paid to
Understood.
remove.
It's not to replace it with the permanent.
Correct.
No,
This
no.
is
Understood.
authority
This is
for-
just finishing cleaning it up, and this is the payment. Mr. Moulton, can you speak more to this? This is not about rebuilding the wall there or anything else.
Sure.
Just give some clarification, please.
Yes, absolutely. So this is authority for the district where this is currently under review, but this is authority for a process of payment for the removal. If the board recalls, there was initial removal, and then there were the foundations that remained, and then the secondary removal took place just prior to the Independence Day Parade in July.
So okay, that's this. And now, is any of this the insurance money? Where's the insurance money?
So, Ms. Hannah, the insurance money in process is still active and ongoing through the verification process for the quotes that were received for the initial repairs and the value associated with that. That estimated value is consistent with what we reported in September when the board took action on the removal. But this,
We got 250,000. If I'm correct.
So we did not get 250,000, but The 270,000 that showed up on the capital improvement agenda item is the estimated value for replacement, and some of the initial quotes that we received that were communicated with insurance were consistent with that approximation. We were essentially trying to make it a wash. So I'm not quoting the exact value, but the 270,000 was what we brought to the board last fall.
But I'm asked, I guess, to Ms. Hannah, because I know that's going to be the follow-up.
Yeah.
We received the insurance money already, right? They gave us the money based on what our estimate was, and that was deposited. We got a check for the insurance, or are you saying we did not?
We have not received the insurance money as of yet.
Because we haven't voted on what the actual replacement or look of it is going to be, right? So until after.
We did.
We would get-
That's why I'm confused.
So we haven't received the insurance money as of yet, because our insurance carrier still has verification and reviewing the initial proposals that were submitted to ensure they're accurate and appropriate as far as unit costs, et cetera, et cetera. However, we did not elect to repair, and maybe I should say this for clarity. The insurance company was not going to pay for us to replace the wall. It was to repair the damages, the two large areas of damage, as well as the surrounding areas for rebuilding.
Yeah.
So that valuation is what we brought forward to the board last year to support the recommendations we presented for replacement, because the value was, we were trying to keep the value consistent. But those were based on proposals at the time, not necessarily the vendors. Like, we had not done an RFP at that time. That was based on the proposals we received working with our architect. So we will confirm, but I am very, very confident that we have not received that insurance money as of yet. But we did put in the capital project request that was presented to the board in February, the $270,000 number based on the board action that took place last September. With the removal and potential replacement.
If we just come back and update, I don't want to belabor the point, just see where we are in process and what we can
So I'm,
expect and how
I'm
much.
still confused. You know, normally an insurance company pays if somebody damages, you know, your car or something, your house, they assess what the damage was, and they tell you that, and they tell you how much you're gonna get, and then you can decide what you wanna do. Do you wanna repair it? Or do you wanna replace it, or do you want to
Or
sell your
take it
car
down,
as
yeah.
junk and keep the money? It's kind of up to you. So it seems to me strange that the insurance company wouldn't have given us a figure
Yeah.
already.
For time, let's take it back as a question and come back and
Yeah,
report
let's take it as a question.
Yeah, because the 250,000 number is what I had in my mind.
That's what I had in my mind too.
So,
We will bring that back to the board.
Yeah.
and then we have item O, Inner Waukegan Facility Rental Waiver Request.
That's for the soccer teams, right?
It's a part of one of them ways.
One way,
Youth
yes.
soccer, yep.
Yep.
P, teacher vacancy grant. What I'll say is I'm excited to see it happen again. I do know that we talked about, and I'm going to continue to push it because it became an even bigger issue this year, but teachers that are relocating to the area from wherever they are coming from. So are we setting aside, or is there a plan or an opportunity to use some of these funds for that idea of relocation, recruitment, whatever we want to call it.
Yeah, Board President, just to answer Brandon's question right now, Board President, we can't answer that right now. We are looking into how can we subsidize that, or where does it fit. Our team is aware. We will be coming back with that information once we have a concrete plan and we know it's sustainable, and we know that we have agreement from all parties.
And the only other piece is kudos to the HR team and I believe workforce development on some also using some of their resources and funds, to Ms. Gonzalez's point, to look at opportunities for our peers, specifically targeting that group. And that's another partner that I'm glad to see come on board. Ms. Lindsay.
I also wanted to just thank, because it does include ESL endorsement, and so we do have a couple of individuals going for that, and I was really excited to see. And personally, I hope that continues to grow over the years.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have we done anything, this is, it's not on the agenda, but is, our translators, our interpreters, have we made sure that they have gotten the trainings that they need, and that actually that the new, that there was legislation put in place that they, like the interpreters, like going into IEP meetings, right? That they had to be trained in to understanding the IEP process, and I'm hoping that we have acted upon that with our interpreters and our translators.
We're not prepared to answer that this evening. I do know that Ms. Ambrosio is not in the audience this evening, and we passed academics, but I will have that question answered for you and either sent to the board or bring it back at our next board meeting.
Yeah, because there is new legislation behind that.
I did capture your question, Ms. Hannah.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, next items are the reports. So treasurer's report has been listed. Student activity and convenience account bank reconciliation. I just want to, for the public, if we can, I asked this question previously before transparency. I had individuals that were telling me that we were canceling all clubs. Can we clear that up?
We are not canceling all clubs. There was information that high school clubs were put on hold. My understanding is that Dan Hill wanted to look at his overall budget and make sure that allocations were concrete. Ms. Patty, did you want to add more to this? I just see you shaking your head. I know that Dr. Cesario also worked on this.
Good evening, board, members of the board, board president, superintendent, members of the community, colleagues. Last week, we did, one of the administration from the high school campus did send out information related to high school clubs, and the message was to please put them on hold for the time being. We understand that that message does raise concern and wonderings around what's going on. We want to make sure that we are not taking opportunities away from students. So totally understand the question and where it's coming from. We have worked really closely with our finance team through Ms. Polk, through the area superintendents and the principals to review their site-based budget, of additional funding that is part of their overall budget, and the principals with their teams determine where that funding should be allocated. That was a new approach that the schools had to kind of really take a reflection on. Where do we want to put funding that's going to have the biggest impact on where our students are going to participate? Is it before school? Is it during school? Is it after school? Is it tutoring? Is it clubs? Is it all of those things? And so instructional leadership teams and principals are charged with looking at their overall budget, making sure that they understand where that money needs to go to have the highest impact, and then the principals communicate directly with finance to let them know we want money in this account, we want money in that account, and Mr. Hill just had not yet had the opportunity to make sure that he knew exactly where he had wanted to put all of the resources that are available for the high school. They had done a complete audit of clubs this past spring. We spoke about that as part of the high school transformation year 2 plan, making sure we knew how many kids were engaged in which clubs had high participation, which did not. What clubs have we not yet offered that kids would really, really want to be a part of that we haven't even thought about yet? And so prior to putting anything out there that would cause clubs to start, stop, Mr. Hill wanted to make sure that he had appropriate information shared with his staff who run the clubs, and that appropriate information could be shared with students so they could sign up.
Ms. Lensing, and then I saw Mr. Vukovic just there.
I think for me it comes down to a communication piece, right? Because if we are clearly communicating with our staff, like this is what's going on, this is why it's going on, then we get, as board members, we're not reached out to saying they've canceled our clubs, we're concerned. What's going on?
Understood.
You know, is it because of the SRO that they can't fund it? Is it because of this they can't fund it, right? I think we need to be better with intentional communication, right? Because nobody wants that call from their boss of like, hey, you got a minute? This is along the same lines of, hey, we're pausing clubs. Well, why? And it builds that anxiety, and then people can't do their job. So that's a little frustrating. On top of that, and if you could specify, but you know, with the Washington campus, you do have a year of students that are continuing on in that building, and then we have them at Brookside, are we surveying the students before the next school year to try to get that done ahead of time? Because my concern is we want our students engaged from the get-go. If they are engaged in the school community, we're going to see less fights.
And increase attendance and a lot of those positive
Exactly. It's a
connections.
domino.
Yeah.
It impacts so
Understood.
many things. So to hear that we have to put them on pause, there's a windfall effect that's going to go with that we are trying as a board to avoid as much as possible.
Understood. Communication is a key ingredient to making sure that there isn't confusion, that there isn't start-stops, and there isn't kids might be engaged at one point and then they get confused about, well, are we meeting or not meeting, and then they just don't come back, right? I totally understand those concerns. Working with the high school team on communication, making sure that they are collaborating with those who can help with messaging, making sure that we can poke holes and understand and add more details to messaging that goes out so it doesn't cause confusion for students or staff is something we will strive to do better on.
Thank you. Mr. Vukovic, we got a mic for him.
I understand budget concerns, but this is the 6th week of school. The 6th week. Administrators are year-round people. What the hell are you doing? Everybody's worried about the next trip they're going to go on, but these kids, some of them you're going to lose. Some of them might have had an interest in joining one of these clubs, but here it is, the 17th of September, you lost them because somebody wasn't doing their job. And this comes from the top leadership. You people need to make sure that you have a checklist and that it's the first 30 days before school, people are quizzed on certain things. You need to make sure positions are filled. Everybody waits until the last minute and say, oh, well, that's the way it is all over. But that's not acceptable. It's the 6th week of school, people. Act like it.
I also had a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Hannah, and then Ms. Gonzalez.
2 questions for possible follow-up for the next meeting. Can we get an update on 214 Washington Street? Because we haven't heard anything in terms of completion and stuff. And I also would like an update on the roofing project over at Brookside. Are we on schedule? Because I haven't been seeing any of the work going on over there at Brookside, but I still see all of the equipment and everything over there.
I thought the main work was supposed to be done August 12th.
And if that's the case, then are we off schedule? And you know what I'm gonna ask? Where are the penalties if we are behind? That costs money. I mean, it's bad enough we've already allotted 10 million.
We will definitely have an update on both of those.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we got item 6C, the schedule. Oh, Ms. Gonzalez, go ahead, Ms. Adrian. I'm sorry.
I did want to echo the concerns about starting on time, but recognize that Mr. Hill is now in charge of 2 campuses, so I wanted to put that out there. And I actually salute the audit of the clubs, because I think we've been saying for a while that I wish all the funds, or all the clubs were funded,
Yes.
had not the same level of funding, but a proportionate level of funding, depending on student engagement, which leads me to my question. Are we, to measure engagement, are we using Infinite Campus?
Yes. So what we had talked about last year in our goal setting is that though we had a number of clubs going on, we didn't have a central system to capture who was in them, attendance, grades, etc. We have started to implement the idea that we talked about in our goal setting process and evaluation last year. So yes, you will see that. Ms. Gonzalez.
In me understanding budgets and budget considerations, I do want us to continue as we look for places to cut. I think our line in the sand is obviously we have to keep staff, right? That's a priority. And then the last thing touched are the things that impact our students.
Right.
So as we heard from the community today, if I have to decide between 50 clubs and 30 people going to a conference, I want the clubs
Yes.
to be the thing that is prioritized.
Yes.
So as we start to make those decisions or ask people where they can cut, and we look at those different opportunities, I'm saying that publicly, and I hope with board concurrence, that the first place we look is not at things that directly benefit or help our students. Go ahead, Mr.
I just want to echo that my team, I'm sorry, Mr. Edwards, I apologize. You want to go first?
Yeah, I just want to say, yeah, cut some of the trips, but make sure you're cutting the right ones now. Okay? Now, get them what they need.
No, I got you. Yeah, that's fair.
Seriously, right?
But I'm saying,
because clubs, we can raise money out there in the community if the right people sit down with the right people. That's easy. But I want to make sure we are definitely investing in the staff. That's key to me. I'm all with that. But make sure we're doing it the right way. That's all I'm saying.
fair point.
I think it's both and, right? My team is in the room right now. Ms. Polk, Dr. Cesario, Mr. Moulton. We have been meeting regularly. My direct instruction is nothing gets cut that directly benefits students, and nothing has gotten cut as of yet. These clubs, are we looking at them to see what is the value of them? What are kids interested in? Have we been having a club that we don't really have high attendance in? Maybe we need other clubs. I mean, things change from year to year. We will work with Dan Hill on that. I also want to say that we know that we are at, the Esther Cliff, right? We all knew it was coming. I will state publicly that we have a great financial team that is very conservative. And so we do have money. We are tightening up because we do not want to overspend or to waste money, but there is enough for day-to-day operations. However, until we get used to our new teacher contract, which was very much needed in Waukegan Public Schools, we have a contract coming up this year that we're going to have to negotiate. There's just other budget items out there. Anything that is brought to the board has been budgeted, is in the budget process, in the development of budgets. So these are not one-offs or just something that is not needed or does not have direct implication or direct impact to the work that the different divisions are doing in their specified areas. And I do want you to hear that from me as your school superintendent, who works very closely with finance and all the areas of the house to ensure that we're aligning our efforts and ensuring that we get the greatest impact, and that we do not have duplication or waste.
Yep. And my only point, because I agree with everything you said, and I say this with all understanding the demands of the role, but I echo Mr. Vukovic's point, and I hope that it's heard, is 6 weeks into school is when we're announcing clubs, right? These are the clubs that you're enrolled in. It's not when you are deciding what clubs are going to be. And so it just seems like we are, again, if that's the reason that we said to put these things on hold so that we can do the evaluation was done. Now we're at implementation. Have full faith in Mr. Hill. I'm only saying that because sometimes my words are misinterpreted. So I just want us to remember is that I think a checklist is an important thing. It's something that I have at work. If it exists, great. It should be updated regularly. But we open the schools like clockwork to something else that was echoed. We have certain things that happen on an annual basis. And when those things can be systematized, if that's a word, then you avoid issues. It's something that even my own team, in full transparency, I know how to do the job, and you think you know how to do every step. but when you don't have it
Really?
in front of you, you forget that 1, 2, or 3
Yeah.
things. So, and when people transition, sometimes things are lost because we don't have it written down. And so I'm not placing blame as much as trying to say, moving forward, this is something that I would like us to do ahead of time, and maybe if we add it to our opening schedule, it's something that we wouldn't be here, where it did create some type of confusion and angst and anxiety amidst some of the other conversations that we were having with the SRO. And then Ms. Lindsay, I'll give you a final word before we close out.
So,
Can I just say
Superintendent, when you were providing some of that information, you said that these things are budgeted for, they're built into the budget process. And to not just Mr. Edwards' concern, but Board President, your concern and many of our community members' concern about the length of these meetings. With the budget workshops that we do, I would like to recommend one of those budget workshops be specific to some of these items that are clockwork, are expected, so that we can go through any detailed questions on those items, so that when we see it on the agenda, we've had that in the past and we can move through this faster.
That's fair. That's fair. It's a good recommendation. And I just want to touch on, we do have opening school checklists that the area superintendents, along with the exec team, look at. We also have, for the first probably 7 to 8 days, we have meetings scheduled to find out where are there gaps on something we may have missed or not. I will revisit our checklist to ensure that clubs are on there. And I'm looking at my team right now, but we will look into that, and Board President, it is noted.
Thank you. All right, we got item C, the schedule of investments report. The information and the items are there. With that, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McBride, seconded by Ms. Gonzalez. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Meeting is adjourned.
Yes, sir.